Hello, not your everyday MMA fans. My name is Alex Henry, and I'm with Tori and I'm also with Garrett Armfield. And this is our third interview on the channel. I'm very happy to have Garrett with us. Garrett's currently at his gym right now. And Garrett, we were kind of having a little conversation about the gym controversy, as in the name change and things like that. And let the listeners know what you were telling us before, because I didn't even know about this, and I'm very curious about it. I'm curious to see if other people know about this or if it's only Tori and I that don't know about this thing.
Yeah, the gym was actually before this. They asked me if I had switched gyms because before it was Sanford MMA and now it's called Killcliff FC. But actually, the gym got the naming rights, and like the main sponsor changed and was bought out by a company called Killcliff. It used to be Sanford MMA, and actually before that, um, we actually were at a different facility under a different name. So this is actually like the fourth time they've changed within like the past like 5 or 6 years. So it used to be called Hard Knocks 365, and that was done in Fort Lauderdale. And so back in 2020, January 2020, they opened Sanford MMA, which Sanford is a health corporation based out of like North and South Dakota. And the management group that kind of runs the gym is based out of there. So that's where the sponsorship came through. And they built us this beautiful facility where we train out now with like a fighter's lounge. We have a recovery room, huge mat space, full size cage, a bunch of assault bikes, and then like just a bunch of pros that we get with it. And so we had that for about 2 years, and then about a month ago, Killcliff came in, which is an energy drink company, like I said before, and they bought the names to it, and they pretty much just repainted the entire gym. So same coaches, same training partners, same facility, same location, just a different name. And now we just get a bunch of free energy drinks after practice, which is cool.
Yeah, that is sick. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's some pretty notable noticeable names that fight for that gym. I believe Michael Chandler, is he
Yeah,
there, or Gilbert Burns?
yeah, they are actually. I think Chandler's doing it private right now, but like Michael Chandler, Robbie Lawler, Gilbert Burns, like Jason Jackson, Delano Taylor, Sean Soriano. I can just go on and on. Ronnie Lawrence,
So
hundreds of fighters, so many fighters. I think there's like 40 fighters that we have that are on in one of the major organizations, whether it be Bellator, PFL, UFC, ONE FC.
right. So you've been pro for a while, but it's only been a little bit that you've been in UFC. Kind of talk to me about how it's been training with these guys. Maybe you've been training with them even before you were signed to UFC, but now, especially being a UFC fighter, how is it maybe sparring with these guys or just being able to work out and pick their brains?
Yeah, so actually, I came down here in June of 2019. I went to school at Missouri State University, and that's in Springfield, Missouri. And so I was training out there, and I was there for about 4 years. And then after I was done with school, I was like, man, like I love this gym, and I could continue to learn under here, but I really want to travel and get out because, like, for the first time in my life, I don't have like school holding me to a certain location. Like, I don't have anything holding me down. And so my original plan was to go to Denver, Colorado, and train at Factory X. And my coach was like, "Oh man, don't go to Denver." I'm like, "Why's that?" And he's like, "Well, the taxes are really high and it's cold as balls." So like, my roommate or his roommate, whenever he was younger, actually it was Michael Johnson, who trains at the gym here. And so he set me up with the chance to come out here. So in June 2019, I just like packed up my car and drove down here hoping I would make the team. So I had like a week tryout, and they ended up letting me stay and train. And so I just stayed in South Florida. And so I turned professional in August 2018. So I was about a pro for a year before I came down here. And then I was training here for about 3 years. It was actually like a week after my third year anniversary that I got the call up to the UFC. So that probably the main difference between like training before UFC to after UFC is people try to like beat you up way more than they did before. Because
Mm-hmm.
like now everybody's got like a bone to pick. Like everybody's got to prove themselves against like a UFC fighter. So especially new guys that come in, and if they do their research, they're like, oh, he's in the UFC, blah blah blah. Or like I'll be like wearing a UFC shirt. Yeah, they come after my ass. And so that's probably like the biggest difference is that like training sessions got even harder, but at the end of the day, that just pushes me to be even better. It pushes me to grow and like face uncomfortable situations.
Yeah, and I mean, I had saw that growing up you did amateur boxing.
Yeah.
So kind of what was the transition? Maybe you did MMA before and you did amateur boxing on the side, but what was the transition from boxing to MMA, or what made you decide that this is what you want to do with your life?
Yeah. So actually, I started with karate when I was like 5. And
Oh,
this
that's
karate
cool.
school was owned by kickboxing. Um, kickboxing was really big. It's big now, but it was really big in like the 70s and 80s as well. So the people that owned my gym were big kickboxers, and so they had like kickboxing gym on the side. And so I was doing karate as a young kid, and my brother started kickboxing because they did the classes at the same time. And I was like, oh, everybody wants to be like their older brother. So I started doing the kickboxing classes with them when I was like 8 years old. And then ever since then, it's just been like just the one thing that's been constant in my life. You know, I've like tried other sports, but I never really cared. Um, but fighting was always like my thing. Like I always loved it for some reason. It was just like something I've always done. Just came natural to me.
Did
Um,
you, I'm sorry, did you watch combat sports when you were younger?
no, actually, at first didn't really like MMA when I was like 10 years old, 11 years old, because like my dad didn't like it either because he didn't understand the grappling part because like he would help come and like help coach me in boxing and stuff. Um, and so like my dad like we would watch like the first UFCs together, like obviously on replay because they came out in like '97. That's like I was born in '96, so obviously wasn't watching it then. But my dad would get like so pissed when he'd see like the guys like because they didn't have rules then, so like the guys would like pull his hair and stuff. And I remember my dad would be like so pissed, like yelling at the screen, like wanting the stand up guy to win. The jiu-jitsu guy always won. But yeah, no, my brother was one that I was like probably like 13 or so. My brother was like 4 or 5 years older than me, so he was 17, 18. He started doing MMA, and he of course again want to be like my big brother. I was like, oh hell yeah, I want to do it too. And so they actually started a jiu-jitsu program at the gym I was training at. And so like 14, I kind of like understood like what MMA was, and I just always knew I was going to do
Mm.
MMA. There was never like I always like I wasn't expected of me to do it, but like at the same time I'm like, oh, of course I'm going to do it. Like I expected myself to do it no matter what. And so then I went to school at Missouri State University, and that was in Springfield, Missouri. And so then I moved out there and was training in MMA there, and that's when I started my amateur MMA career. And so I went 6-1 as an amateur, and then turned pro while I was in college. And during that time, I was like, I could either go get a job in an office and do that, or I could go explore this and see, where it could lead me. And like something about like sitting in an office just like right after school just didn't sit right with me. And I was like, man, I got to explore this. I've been doing this since I was a kid. Like it's always that what if. A lot of people are always like, oh man, like why do you think like you can make it? Like why is that kid make it? And like my response was always like the next UFC fighter has got to come from somewhere.
Mm.
So like might as well put in the hard work and make it become you. You choose your destiny, I believe. And so if you put in the hard work, then it eventually comes to you, and you like end up finding it. It's crazy. I started at a small gym in Eureka, Missouri, where there's population like 5,000 people, and I ended up finding my way to fighting in Vegas. So it's a crazy world.
Yeah,
No,
that's awesome.
those are really wise words because you said a lot of things that I was already kind of going to ask you. I'm in contact with a lot of amateur fighters. I work at an amateur promotion, and I
Oh,
was going to
nice.
ask you, what advice would you give an amateur, but more so, even an amateur who wants to go pro like you did. That's
Yeah,
still kind of it's been a while, but it's still newer to you compared to somebody who's been in the sport a while.
yeah,
And not only that, but even Jake Paul, whether you like him or not, he after his fight with Anderson Silva, he said, even if you're 40, 45 years old, I still recommend that you chase your dreams. Maybe what would you tell somebody who thinks, maybe their dream isn't MMA, but they are so MMA is a hard thing to,
yeah.
stop doing college, to drop college and to dedicate your life to. So maybe somebody who's afraid to dedicate to a career path, what would you tell those people?
Um, just to go for it. That's like as simple as it is. Just go for it and work hard, no matter what it may be. Like, say you want to be like the next editor at New York Times, or if you want to be a UFC fighter, if you want to be a movie star, you got to surround yourself with people that have that work harder than you. If
Sure.
people work harder than you, and your goal is to outwork everybody that works harder than you, then you're going to be the hardest worker in the room. And I'm a firm believer that hard work gets you places. I mean, yeah, obviously, like Jake, I'm a big fan of Jake Paul, by the way. I think it's cool how he's fighting these tough dudes, and he's bringing a lot of young viewers to the sport that a lot of other athletes couldn't capture. And yeah, he had his YouTube, so he's able to have his audience is already larger. But again, the dude's fighting not slouches. He's fighting former world champions, so I think he's a stud, and he's winning too, and he looks good. But like again, just like hard work, and like you gotta like not do what everybody else does if you want to be different. Like I don't know, like while I was in school, like I could have gone out every single weekend with my buddies. Like my best friends were in frats. I wasn't in one, but like we could have gone out and gotten drunk every single night and like said fuck training, do all that stuff. But I was like more content with training my ass off and then sitting at home on the weekends or just like chilling by myself if I had a fight coming up. And so like I heard this really good quote. I think it was like an Instagram quote or something, like one of those like side hustle Instagram pages, right. But it's like working hard during your 40-hour week, that's just what makes you average or a little bit more than average. It's what you do when you're not at work that sets you even further ahead than the people that are doing what they're doing, you know?
Yeah.
Like that's how you build your life is in your downtime. What are you capitalizing on that? Because we all got to work. We all got to do stuff, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Like my advice, like an amateur fighter, is just like train hard and take tough fights, and don't be afraid to take tough fights. But if anything, just be coachable and just train as hard as you can, like to the point where like it makes you not want to do it anymore. Because if you even take like a week off, you're gonna miss the hell out of it.
Yeah, and speaking of just taking opportunities, I mean, kind of going back to your amateur career, you and your UFC debut is you had faced the same guy as David Onama, I believe, in your amateur career previously, and just taking chances. We had mentioned before that, and within your UFC debut, you took a fight against David Onama at a weight class above 145 on a week's notice, I believe. How did you make that decision? What kind of were the thoughts going into that, and just your thoughts on the whole experience in the fight itself?
Yeah, I mean, there was no thought about it actually. It's like, you know, it's like something I've dreamed of, and I would dream so hard. Like I swear I've seen it before a million times. So whenever I got that phone call, I was like, at first I was like, wait, I was like, wait, I gotta ask my coaches real quick because like I want to get my coaches approval before I say yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
And the manager was like, what? You gotta ask your coaches. And so like my coach picked up, and thank God, after like one phone call. Next minute, he's like, yeah, let's fucking do it. So next minute, I call my manager. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And it was like actually 4 days notice. I got the phone call on Tuesday afternoon, like around like 4 p.m. And then I booked a flight to Vegas at like the last one leaving was at like 9 p.m. And so like next thing you know, I'm like in Vegas 5 hours later. And like I was telling you guys earlier, I was actually at a happy hour with my dad like an hour before I got the phone call. And so I was kind of drunk. I was like drunk when I got the phone call. It was 4th of July weekend. Like, what do you think I'm doing?
Yeah.
And so, I got the phone call and I was like, all right. And next thing you know, I was in Vegas, and it was so surreal, and it was a lot at once. It was a lot to soak up all at once, especially because they have you running back and forth doing like medicals and like doing doctor's appointments and doing interviews and stuff. But honestly, like I thought it was awesome. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. I got to fight somebody that I've already fought before. Because I remember after our amateur fight, there was like a couple promoters in like Missouri that was like, oh, those guys are gonna be 2 future UFC fighters that we're gonna see fighting tonight. And like you're like, oh yeah, like maybe. And the next thing you know, I'm fighting them in my debut.
Yeah.
So it was it's crazy.
That's awesome. And I mean, that was in July. So are you planning to fight before the end of the year? Are you in training camp right now? Have you heard anything about like some recently, maybe like a fight being booked soon?
I didn't know if you guys heard or not, but I was supposed to fight actually last weekend. Yes. So actually about 10 days out, I was having such a great camp too. I was working my butt off, and I actually quit my job just to focus on training only. And so I ended up getting a MRSA staph infection about 10 days out. And I was actually battling, I got little scars on my hands right now. Because I was actually I kept getting cuts and they just weren't healing because I was overtrained. But I was like, oh, I got 2 weeks. It was like 3 weeks out, it started happening. I was like, oh, we'll be good. I'm keeping them clean, blah, blah, blah. And so then it just kept popping up, kept cleaning them. And then about 10 days out, I felt like super overtrained the Monday. And I was like, that's weird. I just rested all weekend. I shouldn't be feeling like this.
Yeah.
And so even my teammate was like, bro, your energy levels are way off. You good? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I go to sleep. Before I go to sleep, I felt a little bump on my leg. It was really tender. I was like, it's no big deal. I'm going to clean it real quick. And then the next morning, like first of all, I couldn't sleep because my leg was aching in so much pain. And like, I couldn't bend my knee. And so I had like a big ass, like infection spot in my knee. Ooh. And my entire joint was swollen. Dang. And so hurt super bad. Well, came to the gym, talked to my coach. He's like, yeah, man, you need to get to the doctor checked out, especially if your lymph nodes are super swollen. So I ended up having MRSA. Was on antibiotics for 10 days. And so my coach or my manager pulled me from the fight. He's like, yeah, we can just like find another fight. No big deal. It happens. Yeah, I was like bummed about it, but like I'm over at this point now. I'm just focused on getting better and getting my next fight.
Yeah.
And then after the 10 days, almost done. After the 10 days of the antibiotics, they weren't working. Like my infection wasn't healing. So I had to go back to the hospital and get on like a double strength antibiotic. And so I've been on that for like 8 days, and I got 2 more days left. So it'll be 20 days of antibiotics. Almost done with it.
Oh,
so, yeah, that's unfortunate. Do you feel any better right now?
Like the infection's gone for the most part. Like there's like a little sore, but it's not contagious anymore. It's like scabbed over. So I sparred on Tuesday, and like sparring on antibiotics, you feel like fucking god awful. So I felt like shit. Oh my god, I did like 1 round, and I was like dying.
So I want to ask, who's mopping the mats over there? Who didn't mop the mats?
We actually do like they have like sponsors that where we get all this free cleaning products too. We actually do a really good job of keeping the gym clean. It just sometimes
unlucky situations.
Yeah, because there's like probably like 4 guys that got it, and I was just so happened to be one of the guys. So I think it was just like a bad, because the last time I got staph was like over a year ago, which doesn't seem like a long time, but like whenever you're training in a room of like 60 guys and like half of them are from all over the world, and we have new guys every single week.
Right.
That's like another thing is that since we're such like a big gym that people know about, we get different tryouts every single week.
Sure.
And so there's always like a group of 5 new guys coming in, and you don't know if they showered before they stepped on the mat,
Right. So you said something pretty big there, just in a small little sentence. I was going to kind of ask you about this anyway. You had a TikTok or something that you posted on your Instagram where you said, I thought when I got signed to UFC, I wouldn't have to keep being a waiter anymore. I was going to ask you about that TikTok, and obviously, if it is correlated, you said you did quit your job. Are you full-time MMA right now, or is it busy? Am I overstepping boundaries here?
No, I don't care. I'm open book.
Cool.
Yeah. I don't mind answering these questions because like my favorite part about the fighter's journey when I was younger was like the before they made it part. That was like how they made it, what they had to do to make it. I didn't really cool seeing them be the champion, but like what made them become the champion was always my favorite part. So I'm open book about all that. Actually, I got fired from my last job. I said I quit, but I got fired actually because we get these secret shoppers that come in, and it's like a Mexican restaurant, and like they sit down at your table and like they grade you, and like you had to like talk about the hot sauce and do like A, B, and C, and like I'm like a perfectionist. Like I have to be like perfect at everything I do, no matter what it is. And so like I like do good service, but at the same time, I don't fucking care talking about the fucking hot sauce.
Yeah.
I'm the fuck. I'm like, so I had like the hot sauce, and I walked up, and I took care of them, but just didn't talk about some shit about the menu. And so I got like a 75%, and they want 90s. Oh. And so they're like, okay, we're gonna coach you through it. And so then next week it's like random. Like before that I only got shopped like once in an entire year. And then so the next week I actually got shopped again, and And I literally tried to like be good. I was like, I started talking about the house, but it was just this one table that I was like in a rush. This lady had it out to get me. She was so mean, but she like gave me like a 20%, and I was like, how?
Dang.
How did you give it
Yeah.
20%? I literally did everything I was supposed to freaking do. It's just weird. And so yeah, they had to let me go. So that was like the last week of August, and so I was like, oh, okay, cool, it's meant to be. I'm just going to just like hustle and just train. So
Yeah.
2 months without working. Um, and then, obviously now money doesn't grow on trees.
Yeah.
And so it's been like 4 months since I fought. And so I'm actually waiting tables again, trying to move up to be a bartender, make a little bit more money. But yeah, so back to waiting tables. And honestly, I kind of like it because I had too much free time when I wasn't training.
Sure.
Because like you train, like I'd be at the gym from like 9 to 12, and then I go back like 5 to 7. And then Saturday night and Sundays I'm off. And like I'm the type of person where I constantly be doing something. And so like I was like going crazy not working. So I'm actually very happy to be back waiting tables. And I think not working, because like I didn't really like waiting tables, but I think not working made me appreciate it so much more.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's like my escape from fighting, because it's like my entire life, you know?
Yeah. And that's so awesome because the people sitting at tables, they don't even know that, or maybe they do, that they're being served by a literal UFC fighter.
Have
Like
you been
that's
recognized?
awesome. Yeah.
Actually I had like people, because I have cauliflower ears, they're like pretty prominent.
Yeah.
So people usually ask about it, and then like I'll tell them. I've had like people, I guess people like I just assume I'm like a UFC fighter. It's like they'll look at me and they're like, "Oh, can we take a picture with you?" And they don't even know my name. I think they just like assume.
Right.
But I actually have noticed like there's like a relationship between where if I talk to them about like my fighting stuff, like about being signed to the UFC, they actually leave me more money, which is cool. So like
Yeah.
I'm like been taking advantage of that. And actually what I do is I have this little wristband that it's my digital business card. And so whenever like somebody like asks about it, I like have them touch their phone to the wristband, and it pulls up like all my social media profiles and my biography.
Cool.
And so that's
that's
like another
awesome.
way like I build my social media fan base, is by doing that. And so then people like follow and shit.
Yeah. Yeah. And just kind of switching gears. So your division, like your normal division, the one that you're going to be competing at is the bantamweight division. Right now, that is probably, as you would know, the most stacked right in the UFC. You have ex-former champions. It's just a line and a line and a line of people in that division. So I mean, you are an exciting fighter. I believe, is it all your wins in your professional career are by finish, or at least, I mean, 5 knockouts and 3 submissions?
All but
I
one.
believe.
One of my fights went by decision.
Yeah, it's so exciting. So I mean, just if you were to have just a dream matchup, someone that you think would fit your style right now, like you call Dana White, you're like, I want this fight, and he says yes, who would you choose?
Ooh, honestly, like I like to fight. A lot of people like to run around and like point spar, but like I'm the type where I like to walk people down and like hold my ground and fight. So like I think fighting Peter Yan would be awesome, because like he likes to stand, he likes to hold his ground too. So that would be like an awesome matchup. Like obviously I have a lot of areas I want to grow in first before I start taking those big matchups, and I have to climb the rankings just like everybody else has before. But that would be a dream matchup, to be honest.
Can I throw a name in the bowl?
Let's hear it.
Because me and Tori, we have our own podcast where we talk about predictions and stuff. We'll talk about up and coming fights. A fighter, as fights keep getting canceled, a great name to beat to put you up. Cody Garbrandt.
Dude, right?
He can't get a fight. Call him out. Say, Cody, fight me, bro.
That's actually not a bad idea, because they would for one, he's like lost, I think, like 4 of his last 5. Not taking anything away from him.
No, he's one of my favorite fighters of all time.
Yeah. But so like he needs like a fight that, and I'm 0-1 in the UFC, so like there could be like a gimme fight, but I'm no freaking gimme fight. I'm a freaking fighter. And I think that would be an awesome matchup, because he's not afraid to bang. And like I think obviously like I don't have the near amount of damage that he does, and I know I'm just as fast and hit just as hard as him.
Yeah,
I got that dog.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you are fair. I mean, you're young and you're young in the division. Do you plan on like being active, like fighting like three, maybe even like four times a year until you get built up in those rankings, or do you kind of want to take it slow, step by step? Like, what's your plan for your career right now?
Um, yeah, of course I want to be active.
Mhm.
I'm trying to change my life here. I'm trying to
Yeah.
get those 50K bonuses and like
Mhm.
Yeah.
completely set my future up.
Mhm.
So yeah, of course. Right now I'm trying to like figure out my next fight. We'll see if they don't book me. If I have like a 8 month layoff in between my first and second fight, not the end of the world. It just gives me more time to grow, especially like you said, how competitive the bantamweight division is. But at the same time, like other than antibiotics, once I get off of them, I'm still in shape. And give me like a week's notice. I don't care who it is. Cody Garbrandt wants to fight, then like let's go. Actually, he his last fight against Rani Yana or whatever his name is, Rani Yana.
Mhm.
That fight got canceled.
Right.
Yeah.
And so like I saw on Twitter and I like messaged my manager and I was like, yo, come on. And he's like, bro, you have a fight lined up already. I'm like, all right, I know, but still. He's
Yeah.
like,
Like
no.
maybe next time. Yeah.
Yeah.
If that fight happens, I'm messaging you that day and being like, Garrett, what'd I say,
Dude,
man?
told you so. Yeah.
What'd I say?
You're like, it's manifesting at this point.
Now, I want to ask you something, and I've asked a fighter I had on before the same question, and it kind of ties back to what we were talking about earlier. You're talking about changing your life, but you were also talking about having that break away, that work, that break from training all the time, which is pretty much the amateur and pro career to begin with anyway, because you're not getting paid nearly as much as you're in the UFC as a pro and an amateur there. I want to
Yeah.
ask you, Dana White's not listening to this podcast, by the way, I promise. So between us, but are you happy with how the UFC's treated you? Obviously, it's huge and grateful to be in the UFC, but in
Yeah.
terms of financially, do you think that they pay their fighters good?
I mean, yeah, I wish the like the entry level fighters were paid a little bit more, but at the same time, I mean, I agree with the pay structure. The performers perform, and the performers bank. Like they're the ones that really make the money. Like, you don't see any of the people that are winning complaining about fighter pay. It's the fighters that aren't making like a lot of money or the fighters that really aren't winning that are complaining about fighter pay. Other than a few exceptions, I do believe that the champions should be paid more. Like I think a champion and I think a challenger should at least be paid 1 million and the champion should be paid 2 million. Just that's what I firmly believe. But yeah, I would like to see mostly like the pay whatever. If you want to get paid more, fight more and win. Because like if you look at NFL athletes, they compete 16 times in a season. If at best they don't make it to playoffs, so we don't fight as often. But what I'd like to see is health insurance. That's a big one.
Yes.
Like family health insurance, not just when you're in fight camp. Health insurance and like some form of there's got to be like a whole system set up to where like if you're in the UFC after say 3 years, 4 years, you get a pension set up.
Sure.
Or what I like is instead of doing the show and win pay structure, you do like a salary base. So where like maybe your first contract you're not salaried, but your second and third contract you get paid a certain amount every single year, and it comes in like monthly paychecks because that way like it's easier to deal with taxes. And fighters are like now like more so employees at that point, which I know they probably want to try to avoid. But that and then like if they win, they get like a performance, they get like a bonus. So like if you get like a knockout in the first round, you get this amount of money. But if it's a decision, you don't get as much, but you still get a bonus from it.
Yeah. And
Got
that
you.
makes I
Yeah.
was like, that makes sense. Yeah.
No, I think that's a great answer. Garrett, I gotta ask, what are we doing at practice today? Do you know? You're getting ready. You told me you had practice at 6. It's 5:30 as of right now. What are we working on today? Grappling, hitting the bags.
So today, what's up? Today is usually like striking to takedown transitions. Like you kind of work the in betweens, and so that's that's what we do. It's cool.
That's awesome.
It's good.
Tori, any more questions, Tori?
Yeah. It's just like light drilling. It's not like, because like the mornings are our hard sessions, and then at night we focus on technique.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then just my last question, it's just, what is the difference between walking out and maybe like an organization like FAC or the Pyramid organization, and the difference between walking into the UFC complex with just, is the energy just different between these different organizations? And like just the feeling.
I mean, like for whenever I was like doing my debuts, kind of felt like I was in a video game. Because I was like, you know, like I always played the career mode in the UFC games, and so it kind of felt like I was doing that.
Yeah.
Like it was like Create a Fighter. Like you look down at your gloves and like you have the UFC logo, and you look up and you're at the apex.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's obviously it's very like they take care of everything for you, like from your recovery. It's everything's run like so perfect. Like there's like a lot of times you'll have like at the smaller shows, you'll be like, oh, we're doing an intermission, and like you didn't know about it. So you're warmed up, but now you got to wait an extra 30 minutes to fight.
Yeah.
And then also, I would say my nerves are less in the UFC, and that sounds really weird.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, so expected. Yeah.
Yeah, but like you gotta like, for me, like my point of view is that like I have to win this to get to the UFC, and so it was like a lot of pressure on myself. But now it's like now I just gotta perform. Like I'm already there. Now I just get to perform and do what I love.
Yeah. And that's awesome. I mean, yeah.
Garrett, I want to ask, you know, any final words? Where can the fans find you? I know you don't have an answer yet, but maybe when would you like to be back in the cage again?
I would like to fight again. You know, if I can get like a full camp in like February. And then like sponsors, like of course our gym sponsored by like Black Rifle Coffee Company. So like shout out to them. They give us like free coffee. I'm doing an interview right now, like a podcast interview. You want to see?
Say hi. Look who this. Oh.
This is you know Nick Lentz?
Yeah.
This is Nick Lentz's daughter.
Oh, hello. Oh.
Yeah. Say
hi. Hi.
What's going on?
Lasana.
This is Lasana.
Lasana, nice to meet you. I'm Tori. This is Alex.
Pretzels.
She loves pretzels.
They're great.
They come. They hang out in the fighters lounge during practice, because like Nick's the coach. He's actually the one that's running practice tonight.
Gotcha.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, it's like a kid's heaven. It's probably like with food and everything.
Yeah, it's like a big jungle gym for kids, honestly.
Yeah.
But yeah. Just what your question? Oh yeah, sponsors. Yeah, shout out to all my sponsors that have all helped me out in the past. I'm working on some new ones, but I just can't really announce it yet. But yeah, shout out to everybody from my hometown, Eureka, Missouri, for all the support. Love you guys, and then thank you guys so much for having me on this podcast. I appreciate you.
No, Garrett,
thank you so much.
Thank you. You know, wise beyond his years is Garrett, man with very well-spoken words, and a guy that I'm very excited to watch fight again.
Oh, man, appreciate you guys.
And I appreciate you coming on today. We appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
And we look forward to seeing you fight soon, and hopefully maybe having you on again.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, just let me know and we'll get something squared away.
Awesome, Garrett. You have a good practice today.
All right. Thank you guys.
Thank you so much.
Yep. Bye.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye.